Piyush, I've taken liberty to put the first slide up. I don't know if it is visible or not. Can you just confirm that it is?
It is visible. Okay, I think I'll start the session. People will keep on joining us meanwhile. So first of all, thanks a lot everyone for joining us for this masterclass session today. I hope I am audible and you all are able to hear me, see me, and Pamit, and the presentation as well.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So before we kickstart today's session, I would like to give you a quick brief about Pragmatic Leaders. So we build Pragmatic Leaders as a bridge for mid-career technology professionals to confidently change career roles. We are on a journey to link training to employment and build holistically better alternatives with current alternatives in specialized technology business roles like product, tech, sales, growth, marketing, etc. We run pay after placement programs in product management for working professionals looking to transition or upskill that are completely online, case study based, and taught by global industry leaders. Our unique approach has resulted in 79% placement success with an average 50% salary hike for our learners. They are now building products for amazing brands like PayPal, Walmart Labs, Amazon, and more. You can check out our programs on our website at www.pragmaticleaders.io. I'll also share link of our website in the chat section. So with that note, let's begin today's session. In today's masterclass, we are going to discuss about building confidence to transition into product management role. I would like to welcome our speakers of today's session. We have Pamit, we have Vaibhav, Tanya, and Sonupam with us today. So welcome and thanks a lot, everyone. Let's begin with session one of the day. Session one is with Pamit. Pamit brings in 16 plus years of experience into product management. Currently, he is working as a director of product and head of marketplace at Ola. He has built some amazing products for Times Group and Shadi.com previously. With Pamit, we are going to discuss how to overcome barriers of getting into product management role. So hi Pamit, welcome and thanks a lot for joining us. I would like you to take the first session forward from here.
Thank you, Piyush. Thanks for that introduction. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this 20-minute talk. I'll try and keep it as concise as I possibly can, and hopefully you'll walk away with something. I'm assuming this is a fairly diverse set of people. Most of you, I'm guessing, are from a product background, but and therefore I'm hoping that a lot of what I say will resonate with you. The ones who are not, this is probably a good high-level kind of peek into what at least I think about product management, and I kind of draw a lot from Shreyash Doshi, who's pretty much a product rock star, as well as a couple of others, Marty Kagan and some other product writers and authors. So I'll draw from the ACADS world, but I'll try and make it as contemporary as possible. So I think the topic is about transitioning into product roles. So from that point of view, I think it's important to first understand what product management is. It's a fairly recent kind of a job profile. A lot of the jobs in product actually kind of popped up somewhere around 2008, 2010. In fact, my first role was that of a usage and revenue analyst. So it was not even a product analyst or whatever. It was an UNR analyst in a telecom company after my MBA. So but there were product roles at that time. But it's a fairly recent kind of phenomenon. If at least as far as my memory goes, it didn't exist when I was doing my MBA, or it kind of had just started happening, 2006, 2007, that time. This first slide is actually meant to demonstrate a very simple point. I've tried to use pictures so that things remain in your mind. Visuals are a good tool of imparting gyan. So this is actually the picture of remote control. I found this meme online, and I thought that we can start with this. And this is often a problem a lot of us face in our product careers, which is that, okay, let me get this feature into this product as well as this feature as well as this feature. And you end up having a remote control which looks something like that. And you're still discussing about whether we can cram in more products. Quickly go to the next slide. More features rather. The first principle, so what I'll do is I'll spend about 5 minutes on product, and then another 10. I think I have time till 7:30. So what I'll try and do is in 5 minutes, I'll quickly give you a very high level summary of what I think product is and what product is not. and then we will kind of get into what are the skills required and how you can better prepare yourself to become a product manager. And then maybe I think in the end, Payush, you want to do the questions with the entire panel in the end, right? That's how you're going to do it.
Right. We are going to do it, but if we have certain specific questions, we can take one or two questions after this session.
We'll try and take one or two. I think I'll try and finish off 7:25. So the first line or the first principle that I can, kind of tell at least my teams, Shadi, Magic Breaks, Ola, I've always told them that product management is not feature building. So the first slide that you saw with the remote control with all those various features and buttons, each button doing something fancy, that's not product management. It often operationally seems that way. Okay, let's build this feature, or let's build this capability, or this functionality, or this fancy transition. Let's make it look better. So operationally, to a great extent, it feels that way. But the truth is that if you're really a good product manager, the second image should kind of make some sense to you, where there's this cricket batsman who's kind of leaving the ball. So it's literally about not building features. So it's I'm kind of making a point that not only is it about not building features, it's actually about not building features. So I think the irony is that very few people get this. There's feature requests coming from sales and marketing, and often these feature requests are right, they're needed, but the decision of prioritization lies with the product head. And often you should deprioritize. Invariably, the correct decision is deprioritization. So this is it's difficult to deprioritize because you're typically displeasing somebody in the organization. It is difficult to deprioritize also because the CEO wants it. But depending on the culture of the organization and depending on the job security of the larger product team, you should actually be in a place where you're actually not building features or you're ruling out features. And this actually is a very, very primary kind of a aspect of product management. What is it that you don't want to build? This image of the cricketer leaving the ball should come to your mind whenever you're whenever a sales guy comes to you with a request. Having said that, don't be don't be difficult and just say no. The way to do it is to size the problem and to figure out whether the problem is big enough, and then the effort, and then there are lots and lots of concepts and frameworks available. There's a RISE framework available, which I think today we can't get into, but making an informed decision about why you're leaving a feature is the right way of going about it, because otherwise you'll be displeasing everybody in your organization. The next principle is a very simple, straightforward principle. Everybody should be knowing this. Product manager, we say it, wherever we go, it's a nice sing-song thing. Product is all about solving problems. Increasingly, product is no longer about solving problems, but it's also becoming more and more about preventing problems. So this is a little bit of a new pivot. Probably in the last 2-3 years, a lot of product guys are making. I heard a talk, and I've actually copied this from a talk by Shreyas Doshi only. And he made a very good point, which is that, see, as the products grow older and older, which means that as the products, have critical mass, they have, 1 million plus MAU or DAU kind of usage base. As that happens, you are going to actually invariably be preventing problems rather than solving them. For people who are not from a product background, because I'm told that this is actually a very diverse kind of an audience, a lot of you guys would be not from an. I'll give you a very simple story type of an example. This is, I think, in the 1930s or something, that the British, when they were in India, they had a problem in one of the districts in Himachal, where there was a problem with cobras. I don't know if you've heard of the cobra effect. And what they did is they decided to incentivize the killing of cobras. There was too many cobras, apparently. The cobra snake had started becoming a big nuisance in that part, those couple of districts in British Indian, North Indian parts of British India. And what they did is they set out an incentive, and they said that you kill a cobra and you win a reward of, I think, 5 rupees or some such number. And within a year, the number of cobras started increasing. In fact, they became 3 times the number or 2 times the number of cobras they were a year ago. So the incentive to kill cobras actually ended up, creating a kind of a false situation, or a spiraling situation, where Indians started now breeding cobras. So they actually started farming cobras and growing them because they would get a 5 rupee reward every time they would kill it and show it to the government. So you often get into those kinds of problems in product management as well. In fact, a typical company, you will find, especially over a long enough period of time, a company will start creating problems in order for it to solve it. Now, this happens very unconsciously. Obviously, it's not a very conscious call, but what starts happening as products get older and older is that you start creating, in order to solve one problem, you're creating 3 more problems. And therefore, this is a very important paradigm shift in product management that a lot of product leaders are talking about, that it's not just anymore about solving a particular user problem or solving a particular business problem. It's about thinking through about what the long-term effects of that solution will be. So your solution architecture should be such that it takes into account a long-term kind of an impact. Otherwise, it'll be all Cobra effect. All right. The third aspect of product management is about seeking even the most uncomfortable of truths. What I mean by that is, see, the product people tend to invest technology resources, cost, time, money, effort. A lot of bandwidth goes into making a particular feature or a product or a part of a product or or a user flow, whatever you want to call it. And the uncomfortable truth invariably is that it hasn't worked. But a product guy has to make sure that both he himself as well as the rest of the organization have sort it out as to whether that has worked, whether that has delivered the kind of impact, or whether it's been a simple waste of time. A good product manager, in fact, a great product manager, will not just seek the truth, but also try and abstract learnings from that in a way that future product building can be done. So again, it's a very high level, I'm limited by time and therefore I don't want to get into specific examples, but it's a skill set that comes from a personality type. You have to be very humble in order to be a good product manager. Because if you're not humble enough, you will actually try to be defensive about what you've built and try to make the business case look a little different from what it is. So don't do that. It's a harmful way. It's not just, I'm not speaking from a nobility point of view. I'm speaking from a learnings point of view, organizational capability point of view, that you need to be seeking the truth. So this is a third principle that I believe very strongly in. Now, another frequent worry is, what is it? Is it a technical role? Product management, do you need to be? This is something that is a lot of the people who are transitioning will ask typically, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But this Joey and Phoebe situation came to my mind, so I put it up there. Where Phoebe is literally saying the test cases failed, and she makes Joey repeat it. The test cases failed, and then when she says it all together, this guy says my next release is production ready, which means he simply refuses to understand that the test cases have failed and that he's ready to go live. I found this meme cute, and I thought that let me bring in a little bit of humor. But the truth is that product management is not a technical role. Now, this is very debatable, by the way. A lot of organizations have these very funny designations. They have technical product manager, they have technology product manager, and they have reasons for that, I'm sure. But in the purest sense of the term, the classical sense of the term, a product management role is a generalist role with the ability to understand technology and guide technology teams and win them over. And winning them over doesn't mean that you have to be a better techie than them or understand solution architecture better or any of that sort. Of course, you should be able to have a conversation with them, which means you'll have to build some basics in tech. But you have to actually be a business-minded thinker. Now, that unfortunately is a very untangible kind of a thing that I'm saying, right? You have to be business, you have to be smart. I mean, who's going to judge whether you're smart or consumer savvy or not? And therefore, what tends to happen in the practice is that people say that, no, I at least should know technology. Knowing technology, of course, is always an advantage. But there are CEOs. In fact, one of my former CEOs, I can even quote him. He often told me, Anupam from Shadi, he told me that if a person is too technologically smart, I don't want him as a product manager because he's thinking in terms of technology and he's not thinking in terms of consumer. Again, debatable, but a very good debate to have. whether it is a technology role or not. My school of thought and my upbringing, since it's most of my upbringing has been in consumer product companies, is that it is a generalist role. However, my thesis is untrue in certain cases. For example, if the nature of the product itself is technical, for example, browser stack. Right, I have a friend working there, and he was mentioning, "Boss, I have to know technology. We are doing QA automation. Our proposition itself is, it's a technology proposition. Our consumers are technical. Software developers are the ones who are buying our products. So in that case, obviously, the extent to which you need to know technology is a lot more. But consumer products like Ola, where I'm currently, or Magic Breaks, or Shadi, Swiggy, Netflix, all of these, they typically prefer people with a very good understanding of the consumer, and an ability to understand that particular market and understand how users behave in that market. And that comes with a little bit with experience, to be candid. It also comes with a little bit of a natural inclination towards finding out truths, towards analyzing data and all of that. So this is another important thing to know before you're setting out your career. I've also used a little bit of brash language. It's not a mini CEO role. That's bullshit, because CEO is a powerful kind of an alpha position. I've put this image here where product guys who actually work in product will PM trying to add a story into the sprint after it has started. अगर CEO होता तो वो इतना ध्यान से नहीं देख रहा होता. अगर CEO होता तो वो सीधा बोल देता बस कर दो. Product manager is actually the opposite of a mini CEO. He's got all the responsibility, in fact, a lot of the responsibility of running that particular piece of the product, but he does not have the authority. So to a great extent, he is managing people, he's managing egos and all of that. So you need to also be very good, very smart people's person with a smile on your face, often willing to take, no from tech. You should know when to take a no. So all these things are skills you'll develop over time. Nobody's going to be in a position to kind of tell you whether you're going to be good at that or not. But you will learn, and the general ability to negotiate is going to be very useful. So again, that's why I keep insisting it's a generalist role, while there are others who, of course, disagree with me on that particular one. But PM trying to add a story after the sprint is added, just like that image shows you, had he been a CEO, he would have just added it. So CEO is a misnomer. It doesn't fit into what I believe is actually part of being a product manager. Another thing with product is that the tendency is that data, everybody tries to be a hero with their data. Data engineering and data analytics has come a long way. It usually tells you a lot of good stuff. It also usually, in fact, I would say 7 times out of 10, at least in my consumer product career, it tells you nothing. So, which is why I've made this little bit of a thing. Again, I think borrowed it from somewhere. It's not originally mine. Data is not information. Information is not intelligence. Intelligence is not actionable insight, and actionable insight is not innovation. Often, because you've got some data proving something, that does not mean that you're up to some next disruptive idea. There are some very decent courses on how to analyze data. I would recommend you pick any of them. Data analysis does not have to be a very overly complicated job. You typically can use spreadsheets to do a simple analysis, and so long as you're asking yourself the right questions and you're keeping the answers truthful, whatever information you seek from your data, you should be able to get that. So one thing, however, I will say, while I've said all of this about data, I've almost played down data. A product manager cannot survive with this without the ability to crunch data, or without the ability to be friendly with data. So Microsoft Excel becomes the best friend for most PMs. A lot of people actually use certain advanced software like Jump and all, but I pretty much managed my career with Excel, and so it's usually good enough so long as you can write SQL queries into the DB. Now, again, the ones who are from a non-techie background, actually, you're not even supposed to be able to write a SQL query. That's just the mechanics of how you work. So even if, but sometimes these things become important. Writing SQL is not very difficult. It's usually, if you're smart enough, you should learn how to write a basic query into a SQL table, just with a 2-day kind of just looking up the internet, certain syntax. It's like writing into a language. But the truth is that this is just the mechanics of how you do data extraction. The job is not to be, see, one thing I've seen a lot with the PMs, and this irritates me with the product managers a lot, is that they kind of show this ability of their ability to write nice inner joins and complicated data queries and all. Increasingly with certain advanced BI tools getting available, this competitive advantage will go away. So while a lot of PMs have enjoyed an advantage within the organization just because they could write the queries, this particular thing will go away, because it will become increasingly, at least in the mid to large organizations, it will become easy to extract data. Data extraction is not a skill. Data analysis and insight is a skill. So that's again very important for you to understand. Often data extraction pe log aake impress ho jate hain that, oh, this guy can write a SQL query, and that's a false positive. There are certain other things about product management roles. There are certain rituals, backlogs, metrics, dashboards, sprints. All of these things are just tools. These are all very, very, jargon kind of things associated with management of a product. There are means to the goal. They are not the goal itself. So, it's very important not to get kind of carried away with these terms. If you're joining a product company and you hear this a lot, that okay, I'm in a sprint review and all of that. It will probably take you a month to understand what these rituals are and what all of this is. The end goal is usually to influence, either influence user CSAT or NPS, or it is actually to create a revenue impact. So the metrics that actually matter are just very few. The remaining of the metrics, while they're not vanity metrics, they are still important, but they're usually rituals around the real big story. You don't want to get too carried away with all that nonsense. It's a little overdone in the world of product. Another one with which I observe a lot and I get annoyed is that the PMs tend to create. So this is again human, whatever, it's human survival instinct. The older product managers will tend to create a fence around around themselves, which will make it harder for the newer product managers. It kind of depends on the culture of the organization, but product leaders need to be very. If there are any product leaders here, I'm sure they'll agree that you need to be very careful about not allowing that inside your team, where you're creating a fence. You're speaking in jargon just for the sake of the junior guys who just come into the system, and so that they don't understand. That needs to be strictly avoided. Speak in simple Hindi, English, whatever language people in the group can understand, and that's good enough. If anyone's doing that too much, you should know that they're just being a jerk. All right, but this last one is quite straightforward. The job is that of understanding your user or customer. Easier said than done. I like this Pulp Fiction kind of thing that I picked up, that I dare you to not speak to customers. You have to speak to your customers at least five to 7 times a month. I would say at least speak to 5 to 7 a month. In the beginning, I would say speak to at least 50 a month. So whether you can do that or not, how you do that is a little more, it depends on whether you have their phone numbers and all that, but speak to as many customers as you can. That does give you, it's a softer part of product management, but it does give you so this girl is saying, how vague is that? I mean, speaking to customers and understanding customers, what kind of a job is this? But this is in order for you to get the advantage in the company, or with respect to the product, that you really know what you're talking about. If you can, with a certain amount of confidence, represent the customer within the company, you usually make very logical points which will get accepted if your leadership team is capable of valuing what you're bringing to the table. So there is a certain amount of what you call vagueness. Unlike a pure technology role where the flowcharts are drawn and the technical flow diagrams are ready, and all you have to do is now figure out how to code it. A product role is a lot more vague. It's a lot more ambiguous. So you have to get comfortable. If somebody asks you, okay, this is a payment page, tell me how you're going to make the revenue better from this payment page. It's just one page now. Influence this, consumers in a way that on this page, whoever lands on this page now gives you more revenue. It's a very vague question, if you ask me, and therefore the answers are never exact. There's no correct answer for this. So I think that's it. I'm again leaving you with Shreya. She's a good person to follow on Twitter. I don't, by the way, he doesn't sponsor me or anything. I just happen to be a big fan of the guy. He's very, very enterprising. Indian fellow who's made it big in the US. But I like this, because it's vague. it's important to keep getting a little bit of vague gyan sometimes. So this fellow says a sensible null hypothesis for consumer products, and I'll read this out for you guys very quickly. A null hypothesis is that the user doesn't care about your product. A user doesn't have time to use it. A user doesn't understand the purpose of your product. The user will skip any onboarding tutorials. He won't read your UI copy. He will forget about what you've written after signing up or installing it. So imagine, I mean, there is such a lot of inertia against your product. And he's telling you that assume that there is a lot of inertia against your product, and that's given that null hypothesis, build a product that people like. There's some good books. There's a book called Hooked, which many of you may have read, Neera. That kind of gives you some frameworks which help you think, right? These are all these books just help you get your thoughts together. They're not going to give you specific ideas, but the GAN helps. It's not necessarily bad. Okay, so 7:30 ho gaya. I think that's it. I had only till 7:30. If that's it from me, guys, I think that's my last slide, I hope. Yeah, that's it. Maybe one question, or should we just, I think we should avoid it. I think I've overshot. 7:30 ho gaya.
Yes, we can take the questions later, and we are exactly on time. Yes.
Not bad.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Pamit. The session was really amazing. I hope everyone would have got a lot of interesting insights from this session. And you can stay along with us. We'll open up for Q&A in next 1 hour. So, guys, let's welcome our next speaker of the day. We have Tanya Singhania with us. And hi, Tanya. I hope you are able to hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I audible?
Yes. Hi, you are audible.
Hi, guys. So nice to see everybody. And, following Pamit is going to be a huge task with all the meme fest. But yeah, I'll try my best.
So, guys, Tanya is Senior Product Manager at Home Credit. Previously, she has built products for RBL Bank. And in today's session, we are going to understand different salary ranges into product management. And we are going to know about the tactics to negotiate for higher salaries with Tanya today. So welcome, Tanya. We are excited to have you here. And I would like you to take it forward.
Sure. So is my video visible, and am I visible?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, guys. So I hope you are enjoying so far. And now I'm going to take you on a journey to understand what kind of salaries does this really, really exciting role brings on. And, you must have heard from your colleagues, people who are into product management have a fairly good idea of, what the salaries are, because you talk to your colleagues and your friends. But I know people who are still, looking up to transitioning into this field. It's a really mystery, it's like people don't talk about it. In fact, when I was supposed to go and prepare these slides for you guys, there was really very less material sort of on the net, and all I could check out was LinkedIn and Payscale and few of these websites. But then I thought, let me just give you my stuff as well, whatever I have seen during my experience and through my networking skills. So let's dive deeper and see what this is. Basically, there are a lot of factors that really help into gauging what kind of salaries does this particular field brings. So before that, in fact, product management is something that it is like an amalgam of a lot of different roles. And like Pamit rightly said, you're not really a CEO, but you're doing everything, right? So it's a lot of stakeholder management. You need to have all those different skills, and it's really difficult to put sort of a dollar value to what you're really doing. In some of the roles, you're handling a PNL or a book size, so it's still like you can say that I am creating this much revenue, so you can simply justify your ROI, and then you can ask for that particular salary. But in most cases, the job description itself is pretty hazy, right? So what I have found out is there are a few things that really go into how the salaries are really structured, and one of them would be the location. So where you are, whether you're globally placed, let's say in North American continent or in UK, or you're here in India. And in India also, I'll be majorly talking about India, in fact. Here also, how salaries differ between tier 1 and tier 2 cities, how they are different from, let's say, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad to, Delhi NCR. So we'll dive deeper into that. there's another factor that really matters is the organization that you're really going into. So, what policies the particular company has, what is the size of that company, and what's the parity there, or what kind of designation are you really getting into. So a lot of factors sort of matter and go into deciding what the salary would be like. And of course your experience, definitely. And it's I think more or less obvious that the younger ones would be drawing much lesser than the senior ones. Like for example, if you're just an entry level product manager, you will be drawing, you know, on the lower end of the graph, and as you move along the ladder, it will be much higher. And we'll look at all those numbers in a couple of minutes. And the last one would be the roles. Like Pamit also said, there are different roles. There are allied roles that go along with the product manager. So technical, tech, IT product manager, digital product manager, product marketing. There's so many things, and salaries also slightly differ with these roles. We'll check this out. Okay. Uh, so just to give you guys an overview, I saw a couple of websites, and I did a bit of research. And what I can tell you is the average salary, like, the median of the graph would be somewhere around 17 lakhs. This is the base. And so here, again, like a disclaimer, don't hold my neck, but this is more like a median salary. I mean, there are a lot of cases which are let's say the lower end of the curve, and a lot of them are in the higher end. But this is something that I've averaged around with the major companies that are hiring in product manager positions. And a lot, in fact, a lot of organizations, they hire for a product manager role, but the designation does not say so. So all that is not really accounted for. But overall, if you want to have a ballpark in your mind, it's 17, or it's actually 16.6. From the starting could range from 8-9 lakhs per annum, and could go up till 30, 35, 40. And I have seen senior product managers drawing as high as 50 lakhs per annum, right? So it's a huge spectrum. There's a lot of scope. And I would say that it totally depends on your skill set and where you are really negotiating. So we will see a couple of more points later. There are a lot of other components that also go into it. So for example, what's your annual bonus? So I've seen in a lot of companies, the apart from the base salary, especially in product management roles, they give you a sort of a joining bonus or an annual bonus. I've seen it in banking. From my experience, this annual bonus component is particularly there in consulting, and definitely there in banking. The joining bonus is generally offered when you're negotiating. Let's say you're really what do I say? You're really interested in this role, but you are at a higher salary. The company's policy is not to offer you, let's say, above a particular benchmark. And then that's where you would negotiate. And let's say, please give me 4 lakh joining bonus, and I'm happy, right? Because that will cover your ROI for at least 2 or 3 years. So that's how you do it. And a lot of new age startups are also giving stock options nowadays. And I have seen people getting, in like stealth startups, they are getting stock options even up to 10, 12, 20 lakhs. So I have a friend, and he just joined a stealth startup here in Gurgaon. His base is just 8 lakhs per annum, but he's getting these stock options worth almost 22 lakhs. So whenever the startup goes public, I think he's going to be really rich. So yeah, that's the kind of game a lot of companies also play. Moving on, I also have a little bonus slide for you in the end, so wait for that. Moving on, the first, we'll just dive deeper in all the factors. The first one was company or the organization. Like I told you guys, it totally depends on the size of the company, whether you're a mid-sized company, whether you're really huge, you're FANG, one of the FANGs, or whether you're an early age, small startup, small teams. So it totally depends on what kind of salaries are being offered in what how big the company is. And definitely it depends on the industry. So I did a bit of research, and so LinkedIn says that transportation and logistics have people get generally an average salary of 20 lakhs, corporate services 18, software and IT 18, and then entertainment 17. See, I don't really, I don't want you guys to go online and check out and say this is like the truth or the Bible, right? Because whatever information you will find online, it's all speculative. It's all something what people have really put their responses into, and it may vary. It really does vary a lot. So don't just go by what the numbers say online. I will tell you from my own experience that I've seen people who are in, let's say, banking, because I come from that banking background. I've seen that people start at a little lower packages. For example, ICICI gives you an average of around 11 and a half. Axis at the same time is around 10. HDFC is even lesser at 8. And these are the starting salaries majorly. But then the growth also, over the years, the increments are pretty less, like 5 to 8%. But the moment you do a promotion, it'll be like a spike of 20, 25, or even 40. I've seen people getting rating 1 and a promotion getting 42% hike, my own friends. So, that happens. And whereas vis-a-vis some of the top companies, some of the top unicorns in India, Ola, Flipkart and all, they would give you salaries like 25 lakh per annum. Like Ola gives you 28 and a half to 30 lakhs per annum. And again, it totally depends on what you're really bringing to the table. Because from my experience, getting getting into a bank is slightly easier than getting into, let's say, Ola or Flipkart or Myntra or and Amazon. And believe me, I've given interviews for everything. So yeah, it's that's how the pay scale also changes. And you would see that the number of rounds, the difficulty of each of these rounds. Like the big companies, they do justify those higher salaries, because they will take that much juice out of you as well. So be very, very cognizant of where you're going. And the bigger the salary, the more you have to prove your worth, right? So yes. The next factor is education. Again, it's not that you have done, let's say, just bachelor's, and you're saying that I probably somebody who's from an ISB or an IMA, definitely they would have that pedigree on their back, and the start would be much easier for them. But then what I have seen is, especially in product management, over a few years, especially when you're 3 to 4 years experienced, people don't really ask your background in education. It's essential in some of the JDs. I've seen that you need to have a computer science background, or an MBA is a must, or sometimes an MBA is an add-on. But it does give you a push, definitely. But if you're really good, I have seen software developers who are just BSc, or even from a very just graduation backgrounds, unknown universities. They, after a certain number of years, 7, 8 and 9 years, and if they are doing really well, they are earning much more than what IM graduates are earning. And I've seen it with like in my own experience. So it matters. Initially, yes, the starting 2 or 3 years are like a good platform if you're from a good college. But then later on, it totally depends on your skills. And that brings me to the second point: the skills that you're bringing on the table, the kind of industry know-how you have. So a lot of traditional companies, they put a lot of weightage if you're coming from the same industry. So Axis would love it if you're coming from an ICICI, or probably a Tata Click would love it if you're coming from Flipkart. So the similar industry experience, even though as a product manager, when you're working with digital products in industry, it really does not matter, because it's more about your customer obsession and a lot of other things that you bring on. But then being in the similar industry, what really helps is that the knowledge of a lot of policies. So for example, in my experience, since I had come from a banking experience, I knew the RBI policies. I knew how the mortgages are calculated, or how liability products are done. So that kind of gives you an edge over other candidates when you're interviewing, and also when you're performing in your own job, right? Because you bring that experience, you draw from your earlier experiences. So that really helps. And nowadays, a lot of new age technology is also in. For example, machine learning or AI. And if you're done anything in Internet of Things, it's pretty new, it's pretty popular, and a lot of companies are really ready to give huge packages to people who come with such skill set. And definitely analytics, a lot of people, in my experience, they run after these analytics courses because they think that if they would write business analysis in their resume, and that could just put a bump in their packages. But trust me, it's not only about courses or the diplomas or the certifications that you really do. Like Pramit also said, it's all about how friendly you are with data, how you can really justify in an interview and in your job, consequently, that if you can derive good insights from the data, that's where you have learned your analytics, not from any Tableau or any Excel courses, or whatever you may run after, right? Okay, too much gyan. Moving on. Next is location. Again, I saw that, surprisingly, Bangalore has a 17% higher packages than the national average, whereas our Delhi NCR is 28% lesser. So I was like, oh God, I am in Gurgaon and it really sucks. But yeah, that's true. And I have seen it because when I was a product manager in Mumbai for the first 3 years of my career, the kind of offers I was getting were definitely, different than what I would get from Bangalore, and completely different from what we get in New Delhi. So somewhere I think it's about the company's psychology that probably Bangalore has got better pedigree or better crowd or more talented people. So there's a lot of demand in those areas. Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, like they top the list with very good base salaries, for example 20 lakhs, 18 lakhs, and they are really on the topping the charts. Whereas if you come to, let's say, Chennai or Noida, or for that matter, like Mumbai, it's much lesser. So as you can see here also, I have given a distribution. Don't go just by what the numbers are, but it gives you a bit of sense, right? uh, okay, I can't see the chat, so if somebody's asking me something, I might have missed out. Sorry, I just checked it. Where might Noida fall? Okay, guys, Noida is, I think, so when I say Delhi NCR, I think it's all the same. Apart from Paytm, I have not seen anybody really giving huge packages. And because Noida has a lot of, IT software companies as well. So they pretty much are in the ranges of 12 to 13. And that's funny, Noida falls in UP. Yeah, I know. But, the salary matters, right? Let's come back to the topic. And okay, I got another question. What is the median base salary you have? I'll talk to you separately, Santosh. It's a huge medium to disclose my salary here, but definitely I can give you some insights separately. Okay, moving on. Uh, okay, this thing is not working for me. Yeah. So next is experience. Again, your experience from how many years have you been into this particular field really help. For example, when you're initially starting, you're recruited in the role of associate product managers, and there you generally start at 9.5, 10. Usually, it could be a bit lesser also. And as you move up the ladder, you may become a product manager and then come into the category of, let's say, 14 to 15, 16, and then you would move on to an SPM or a product leader category, which could take up your salary packages from straight away from 17, 18 to up till 25, and then 30 plus. And similarly with the years of experience, they actually go hand in hand. So initially first 4 years you're still stuck somewhere 12, 13, 15, and then suddenly after 4, 5 years the jump is from 15, 16 to almost 22, 23, 24. This is all base salary. And then the moment you cross that 7, 8 years benchmark, this is what I've seen from all the job descriptions, and this is what I'm giving you from my experience. That 7, 8 years of benchmark, the moment you cross it, you can comfortably ask for a 26, 28 and 30 plus salaries nicely. So that's the distribution I have seen. I may be completely wrong, but this is my experience. The next factor that really affects is roles, like I was talking about earlier as well. The career path matters, but also the allied role. So you may not be completely, as a person suitable for being a product manager. You could be an excellent, let's say, product owner, or even better product marketing manager. So these allied roles also sort of attract very good packages, almost at par with product managers. For example, product owners have a base salary of around 10, 10 and 10 and a half. They are generally I would say a bit on the lesser side than a product manager. But if you talk about a technical product manager or product marketing manager, they're almost at par. Again, it totally depends. So, in my experience, when I was a product marketing manager, I was given a huge book like P&L to handle, right? So, uh, when you're in a role when you have to justify numbers, sales targets, or some sort of revenue out of the products that you're pushing out the door, then the base might be restricted, but there's a lot of bonus component that gets added, right? So it bumps up your salary there. Similarly, you can see senior product managers and group product managers are somewhere between 20 to 25 range, depending on the company and depending on your experience. So generally this has been the criteria. So if I have to summarize everything, I would say that it 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 depends. Like, again, you will think that she's only saying it depends, but it really does. A lot of different factors cater into what are your negotiation skills, whom are you really talking to, what is the batch parity in that company. I have seen personally that I was drawing more in one of the companies, but then when I was interviewing with another company, they said that, Tanya, we believe that you deserve more, but we just cannot give you because it's not in our policy. And the people from the same batch from your college are drawing this much. And there is when that I realized that probably, these companies are very ethical that way, right? Because then you don't have that feeling that you're being paid less. Because when you're on the other side of the table, when the others are actually earning more, and you're earning lesser, and you're almost doing the same amount of work and within the same teams, it does bring a lot of dissonance, and then you don't feel like working, or you're not your 100%. So that ways, I think you should always have these things in mind, that whenever you're negotiating, whenever you are having or setting your expectations, when you're interviewing with a company, you know what the salary scales are like, what people are drawing at the same level from the same universities there, or how much the company can really push the bench for you, because you are again a different person bringing a different skill set on the table, right? That actually brings me to our next segment, which is negotiating salaries. I will try to give you a few tips and some of the instances that some of the things that I have learned from giving hundreds of interviews and even getting some offers as well. I have interviewed with a lot of good companies, L'Oreal, Amazon, Google, and I've converted also Amazon and Google. There's a different reason I didn't join, but then the experience was tremendous. I got to learn so many things. I have interviewed with a lot of startups, app-based companies, and I can comfortably say that they are completely different. How I would prepare for a banking interview is completely different from what I prepared for my Apollo 24/7 interview or my Zomato interview. So it's really different. And when it comes to salaries, the factor that really helps is that how confident you are. So that brings me to my first tip, which is like, if you have any fear, for example, you have just transitioned into product management, you're coming from a software field, or you're coming from BA field, or some you're a new age product manager. You think that probably if I ask more, they might rescind the offer, or they won't select me, or you think that probably there are better people out there. There are people who have been to PA product management for 5 6 years, or you have spoken to somebody and he's really scared you about. See, punch that fear out, okay? Because uh, it really does not matter what other people think about that company. It all depends on how good a fit you are with that particular role. It has to be a nice fit, like two pieces of puzzle. And if you don't feel that way, if you're not confident enough to ask the the value of your worth, what you feel you're worth, then there's no point even going to that company, right? Because if the negotiation is making you that fearful, imagine what it will do when you'll be working there. So be cognizant of all these factors, and have that attitude that they have interviewed you so far, you have brought into the process, they're giving you an offer. Dude, you're good enough. Like, that's precisely why you're here and nobody else is. Because to select one person, they must have gotten like thousands or 500 resumes. They shortlisted you, And then at the end they took out time, effort, and even cost to sort of interview a few people, and then somebody actually selected you, right? So always know that it is beneficial for them also that you say yes to the offer, and obviously it's beneficial for you as well, right? So uh, push them if you feel like, if you think you're worth more, do push them and ask for it. uh, the next point is setting the expectations right. Like, I know that I'm telling you to push yourself, but then you should know your actual worth, right? For example, okay, you're drawing 14 lakhs per annum, and let's say you're an associate product manager, and you're interviewing for a company ABC, and you know that the average salary there is 24 lakhs per annum, okay, but you're at 14, right? You cannot simply just, I mean, you can obviously, but then you know that you're coming from an APM role and you're transitioning into a PM role, and probably a 40-50% hike is sort of you know uh, I think a 40% hike is also on the higher end, because companies are not very, they don't easily give that. So probably you may want to set a number for yourself, which is your floor number. So let's say you set a number 20, that आज मैं 14 पे हूँ, मुझे 20 करना है, right? Then stick to that number. Okay, just because you heard from somebody वहाँ तो 24 मिलता है, don't go and sit on HR side and say, nahi, I know you give 24 to people, I need 24, because then they will have a candidate who's happily going to agree at 20, and then your chances sort of decrease, right? So be polite to them first of all, and be reasonable. Okay, they have chosen you, they have similar goals as you, but stick to your floor, and know what you're worth, and ask accordingly, right? uh, Next, research. See, go online, talk to your peers, talk to your seniors, check out what the Glassdoor says, or the pay scale says, or six figure says about salaries, base pays in that particular company, in that particular role. Try to find some or the other senior from your own college who's in that particular company, because somebody who is an insider can give you the best sort of information. So do your homework, network a lot, and crunch the numbers. So you're in product manager, right? Numbers are your best friends. So just crunch those numbers, say what the gross is, what the net comes out to be after paying taxes. Are you happy with what you will be getting in hand? Is it paying your EMIs? Is it paying your, is it sufficient for expenses plus your savings plus, let's say, travel also? Like, are you comfortable with that sort of in hand salary? A lot of companies I have seen, they give you a good joining bonus, and they would lure you with excellent job descriptions and these excellent perks, but then the in hand is really less, and because you have not calculated at the time of offer, you were so jumpy that acha mujhe 12 baje offer hai, 1 baje I will say, I'm okay, I'm coming, right? Don't do that, because you might get trapped. So please take time. The day you get your offer call, listen to it very carefully, study it nicely, go back, talk to your family, talk to your friends, do your network, then go back to them. In fact, let them also think now that what is this guy thinking, is he saying going to say yes, is he going to say no? Create that mystery. Don't have to jump and say that, yes, I'm very happy with the offer. And on the other side, if you're not happy with the offer, you were expecting a 20, you got an 18 and a half, don't simply just start on the call itself, tell the HR that no, I had 20 in mind. No, listen to it. In fact, be very zen about it. Be like a yogi. Okay, I've heard it, I'm studying the offer really carefully, I'm going back to my place, and now think how you can negotiate more, how you can leverage your skills. Tell them that what extra you're bringing to the table. Tell them that this is what I have learned according to my research, you're giving to other people at the same role. So my expectations are this. Is it possible, or is there a room for negotiation? Be polite and then start the negotiations. So if you keep all these little things in mind, and uh, you know a good thing that I'm going to tell you is, when you're really polite and when you are confident about what you're asking, the HR also feels that this guy is a or girl is a cultural fit for the organization. You might not know, but sometimes salary negotiations can go a bit on the icky side, and the HRs can have a dislike for you, and then they will try to push the other candidate who's the plan B. right? The hiring manager might like you more, but the HR will go back and say, "नहीं इसको नहीं यार, दूसरा वाला is better," right? So don't get trapped into the situation. Make sure that you are in good books with the HR, okay? And but again, know your worth as well. And lastly, look at the benefits. If you think that I can still live with the offer that they are giving me, I wanted a 21, but it's a 20. But maybe probably you want to look at all the additional benefits that the offer is bringing. Maybe you guys are too young, but after a couple of years, you will realize that childcare or travel allowance or the proximity of your office to your home, all these factors also matter, right? A peace of mind, a good ethical nice company which values your time, which also thinks about your family, gives you a nice medical plan. So these additional perks can also be something that you can really look at while negotiating. So I think you guys have taken my tips and more or less are ready for the interview. So nail it. And this is the bonus slide that I promised. I'll be very quick. These are some of the things that I've learned from my, friends. For example, you can go through it. So recently, this IIT guy I know, he has this 9 or I think 10 years of experience. He interviewed with Zomato and he got a base pay of 45.9, which is essentially 46. So a 46 lakh package with just a graduation, with just a BTech degree, definitely IIT, Ivy League. But you can crack that. And similarly, at the same time, I have this friend who, so I've not listed all the colleges, so please don't say that your college is not there. I've just given you a benchmark. So for example, I was going to give you this example. A person from gym, Goa Institute of Management, it's a tier 2 college, right? Comfortably, it's not Ivy League. He got into Uber with a CTC of 37. Like he cracked the 37 CTC, and it was amazing because I've only heard about people from ISB or IM getting that much, right? And at the same time, I had friends from IMB and IMC who were drawing 12 and a half as well, in some of the companies. So again, both ends of the spectrum. And so it's like he was an MBA from JM. So it's like you could be just 10 years of experience. You could be just a Delhi University graduate and you could get into urban company with a package of 18, 19, or you could be just starting your career, let's say a fresh 2020 pass out from IMK and still getting a package of 15. So the variation is tremendous. And I think with this I have surpassed a lot of my time. I'm really sorry, and I'll close it here. Thank you guys for listening and bearing with me.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. This was really helpful. And as Tanya added the disclaimer, we conducted a lot of surveys before coming up with these numbers. Uh, so you guys know we
Yeah,
should
please
not
don't
point.
hold my or Piyush's neck. Okay, guys, these are all indicative numbers. Definitely, you guys can touch. You get in touch with me, and if you give me your experience, your background, I can definitely guide you more with your sort of background. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. Please stay connected with us. We'll open up for Q&A at the last. So guys, let's welcome our next speaker of the day, Vaibhav Srivastav. Vaibhav, I hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, Piyush, I am able to hear.
Hi, Vaibhav. So guys,
Hey.
Vaibhav is joining us from Netherlands today. He's currently working as a product lead at Booking.com, and he has built products for Xiaomi in the past. And today we are going to discuss with him how to leverage your current backgrounds to transition into product management role. So welcome and thanks a lot, Vaibhav, for taking our time and conducting this session. We are really
Thanks,
excited
Piyush.
for this.
I'll try and share my screen. Let me know once you see it, and I think post that we can start. Just a second. Are you seeing something that looks like a presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. Piyush has given a brief introduction. I'll just repeat. I'm currently part of Booking's security team here in the Netherlands. I'm leading the product for demand side fraud detection. So basically something to do with machine learning fraud detection. I was previously in Bangalore, the salary capital, according to Tanya, right, back in India. And I was working with Xiaomi. I was leading their financial products for payments and credit. So, so I mean, you've seen two interesting presentation. The one with from Pamit was something that even I found insightful, and many of the things even I try doing every day in, day out, and I'm still learning. And Tanya's presentation, of course, no match to that. Money matters after all, right? All right, I'll start with something of what I've penned down as an agenda. And as you can see, my presentation is pretty much an MVP, like a minimum viable product to share my ideas within 20 minutes of time span with you guys. So I'll try and share some data that I specifically captured for this presentation, so we can create some insights out of it. Those insights I've tried to capture them in a few case studies of specific people that are working in India as product managers. I wanted to put in more case studies, but I've just done two, so probably we'll get some. Something that I personally follow and also I feel might also help you. The next two items, that is a PM Daisy, something I'll introduce, and a skill mapping that I've done at several points in time in my past during my product management career. So yeah, as Pamit said, you have to be, you have to have an affinity towards data, and that has to have not just an affinity towards data, but an intent to draw insights out of it. So what I did specifically for this this talk, to understand what kind of background do product managers, many of the product managers that are among us or among our friend circles who are working, what kind of background do they come from? What kind of demographics do they have, and what kind of education, experience and industry do they belong to? Interestingly, and pretty positively, interestingly, the share across the product managers that are in the industry, in the market in India, are equally distributed between men and women. Against the typical thought of having all the product managers come from CSIT background and those who do an MBA, a good number of product managers come from either non-engineering backgrounds or from engineering backgrounds that are not CSIT, and that was heartfelt to see. Also, a good number of them are not an MBA. So there are typical myths around, how do I break into product management if I don't have a computer science degree? Or how do I break into product management? I mean, I don't have an MBA. Again, Tanya mentioned one of the persons who's only an engineer is drawing a very handsome salary. So probably this is one of those beautiful insights that should encourage you to apply for roles that you think you're a good fit for, even though you don't have the required, so to say, degree that typically people presume. And of course, I'll move on to the case studies. But before, it's also interesting to see that people come from various backgrounds. I mean, it's not just always IT software engineers that make it into product management, but people come from financial backgrounds. So you can think of people as CAs. I've known people who were rather medical professionals who ended up being product managers. People who've been into manufacturing ended up being product managers. So there is no single criteria who can be product managers, and therefore you should never be sort of upset about the background that you've probably had, because if you look very intently, and we'll talk about how to do that, you can definitely carve out a product career out of your own backgrounds. I'll move on to something that I said was a PM Daisy, and before we discuss the case study, it makes sense to understand why. Before we start leveraging our background, how do we understand what our backgrounds is? Now, this is a very, very interesting tool. I mean, if you Google later on just the word with PM Days, you'll realize there's a nice website, and there's a questionnaire that if you fill, you'll understand where your skill sets lie, where your involvement and where your strengths lie within the, let's say, within the different spectrum of what product managers are expected to do. So there are a number of things like, you should be comfortably working with engineering teams. You should be good at design, or you should understand how design works. You should be good at working with marketing design, good at working with user experience teams. You should be good at working on partnerships, negotiation strategies, data science, definitely. And of course, you work with a lot of people. So people management, operations team, stuff like that. So, I mean, there could be more than the words that I've just penned down. But what I did back in 2018, when I was still with Xiaomi, I was leading the financial services team there. And I wanted to understand what kind of, let's say, product manager am I? And I realized I very deeply work with engineering, to an extent with UX. I did a lot of data analytics and definitely interacted with a lot of people. But because I was still a lead product manager and my entire business team was based out of Beijing, I had little to no business interactions with the head team. Now, is that the kind of product manager today am I? Or is that the kind of product manager I was when I first joined the entire product management industry? Probably not. So this daisy or this skill set of yours that keeps changing. And as they very well say, you are never able to see the future. But when you look back at the past of your career, for instance, you are always, it's always possible to connect the dots. So if you always look back, the kind of experience you've had, whether into product management, whether into non-product management career, whether into some other industry altogether, you will always be able to point out at certain skills and certain positive aspects that you learned at a previous job that is helping you to be a better product manager. And for that, I will just pick up two nice case studies before I just go back to that last slide. So this is a story of a product manager that's based out of Bangalore. And by the way, I am not able to see the chat. So if there are questions, I'll read them and I'll respond to them when Piyush gives us some stipulated time. All right. So there's this product manager, Manish, who started his entire career as a production engineer, did an MBA, of course, but was working in his very first job at a manufacturing factory in Gujarat. For a couple of years, he worked there. But today, if I talk about his experience and his current status, he's leading a product team in a very potent health tech startup. So he's leading teams that are making machine learning products that do problems like identifying cancer-affected cells more efficiently. So that's a really high-tech, computer-driven product that he's leading. However, he was never a CS engineer and has never worked in a digital setup before. What were his motivations or to transition into product management? So for him, according to him, his motivations were the ownership and involvement. When you work in a factory setup environment, you're directly involving with people. You have to be hands-on on literally everything, and you cannot pass on the problem or the blame for anything that goes wrong to anybody else. And that's pretty much needed, even in a product management role. So you do a bad release as a product manager, you are responsible for it, and you miss out a very important customer insight. It is the product manager that's responsible for it. So with a high sense of ownership and a very high sense of involvement, it is all that it took him to transition into product management. Another thing, in a manufacturing setup and being a very early in his career, curiosity and gaining different perspective was always helping him. So he needed to understand someone who's a factory line worker, someone who was also a supervisor, someone who was also crunching the numbers sitting in the office. So to be able to understand perspectives all across, he understood how to work with various different stakeholders. How did he leverage? So he didn't just transition, right? So he became a product manager at some point in time, but he went on to be successful product manager in the space he entered. And today he's leading a very, very well-to-do startup and a very interesting problem area that he's trying to solve. So what was his leverage? So in manufacturing, he understood the importance of process orientation. He understood why should anything that is created should go through a lean process, and therefore his focus on removing wastage, in focus on reducing the cost, and therefore his drive for bringing the customer value in the minimum effort that can be disposed of, brought him to be a successful product manager. So he used his expertise, his process orientation from his previous experience that was nowhere related to product management directly in his current role, and he's a very successful product manager. I'll move on to another case study. And by the way, these are real names, so you could just go back, Google these people or LinkedIn these people, and you'd realize. So another girl who was again a non-CS engineer, did an MBA with had no experience, and the first job she ended up was in finance and sales. So essentially, selling complex financial products to high net worth individuals. Now this is a very, very different kind of skill set, and in product managers, one of the things that I think all of us hear every now and then, and Pamit reiterated in one of his last slide, that you have to understand customer for everything that you do and for everything you choose not to do. So unless there is a customer, that's sitting at the center of all of your interactions, all of your actions, probably you aren't getting anywhere. So for Priya, the motivations to move into product management were the customer interactions, or the extent of customer interactions that she would have on a daily basis, and the empathy she ended up developing. So it was not always just selling stuff to the customer, but you only sell stuff because the stuff is going to solve a problem for the customer. So in the process, you develop a high sense of empathy to understand customers' problem, and a very, very high drive of ownership and an intent to solve that problem for the customer. So these were her motivations to get into product management. So as of today, she is leading global payment integrations at one of the world's largest ride-hailing companies. So that's a huge transition. Now, what are the leverage from her background, from her past, that she is using in her current role? So as a finance and sales professional, she is using her domain knowledge. So she understands how payments work. She understood how they work in India. She understood how they work in Europe, how they work in LATAM, and all the different geographies in the world. So for her, compliance, accounts, working with legal is something that she has been doing in the past. Second, her daily customer-facing interactions translated into a great sense of customer empathy. So as, again, Pamit said, and we all know, and we've heard so many times, she's the one who represents the customer in the group of her company, and it represents pretty well. The results are exceptional for her company. As a matter of fact, both of these product managers are not just examples of transitioning from a non-technical background into technical product management role. However, they are examples of how to leverage their past and make a huge impact for the company, which translates to everything that matters for them and for the company. I'll go back to the slides and I'll talk about for a minute, how do you do that? I mean, of course, there are different ways everybody tries to identify ways of leveraging their past. And as I said, it's always easy to connect the dots, looking back. So if I look back now, it's very easy for me to, just understand, okay, I was leading financial services at Xiaomi. It was a global company. I had my own startup before that. So I understand how to, work with different departments, and probably all of this. And because I was doing a bit of machine learning myself, all of this translated into being a security product manager, at Booking. And my entrepreneurial experience ended up me leading the entire space. But it's always easy to look, in the past. But what do we do today that helps you reach that position without much, thought and process? This is what I do, and this is what I've captured from most of the people that I've spoke with did. So they understood, what their CV represents. So, and they understood what their key skills are. What are the key stories? So, I mean, when I say stories, it's not just about great success stories or amazing projects that you've read. If you've helped a customer directly, that's a great story. If you failed miserably on a product, that's a great story. If you fell and you got up and you measured and you communicated that well to everybody, and the business was able to recover at the end, that is a great story. So anything that has a great impact on you, on the learning front, on the customer, of course, and on the business are great stories. So you have your skills, you create your great stories, and you have your key achievements. Now, of course, achievements are the positive bits, right? So if you were able to, do something and that increased, let's say you're an account manager and you were able to do something that increased, retention of particular account that was 25% of company's, revenue portfolio, that's an achievement. You were part of a product management team, or you were the product manager and you led a feature release that, reduced the drop off by 12%. That's an achievement. So identify, what skills do you have, what stories, key stories that you have from your, background, from your previous experience or your current experience, and what are your key achievements, and you try and map them to possibly a PM daisy or a skill daisy that you create, the one that I just showed you here, which you can Google. It would be easy for you to understand, where your really, really strong leverage lies. Right. For example, for me, the leverage was in entrepreneurial aspect. So my key skills, okay, you can't see my mouse. So my key skills were very good, being very good with people, being able to manage people at different levels, because I had my own startup, ran it for 2.5 years. I understood working with someone, who was a frontline worker, to someone who was running a multi-million-dollar revenue company. And that became one of my key skills to work at different levels of hierarchy within my and other organizations. My key stories was able to, set up a company from scratch, trying to solve a problem which nobody was trying to solve, raise funding for it, save it from going bad, and which eventually went bad, and get out successfully of a company, that was a story which was successful for everyone, even for the customers. And my key achievements were also around being able to solve a problem that was important to be solved. Nobody was solving it, and do it using some really cool things like machine learning. So all of those, came down to my my capacity, my skill of working very comfortably on complex problems and in a very high-tech environment. And that got me into in the role that I am, like trying to solve a complex problem of fraud and using machine learning and several levels of interaction, trying to do it on a business, compliance, and finance level, apart from working directly with engineers. And I identified, all of this, but it's not always possible, right? So sometimes you need to do a little more, and that little more, according to me, is you have to get the right mentorship. So and understand, it's always possible to figure things out yourself. Most of us do that, right? But it's always better to always have a sounding board. So get a mentor who can always back your place, who can critically challenge you, who can once you identify your leverage, as I said, who could just help you do better using the same. So that is one of the things I would suggest as a final advice on how to leverage your background to transition into product management. And with that, I think I will leave the screen sharing, and I'll pass it on back to Piyush. Unless there are questions, I'll be happy to answer to.
Thanks, Abhav. We have some questions popped up in our chat section.
Okay, let me just open. I am on such a tool where I can do only one service. I'm done presentation. I'll take the last questions. All right. Mohammed says, I'm a business analyst for the product management team. My role is very much similar to the role of product manager in clients getting clarity, but not own any product roadmaps. How do I negotiate for the change in the title? So see, a very important aspect of getting into product management role is being able to clearly define requirements or clearly understand the problem. So as a business analyst, that is one of the major aspects that you do. You can always try and do a little more on one such requirement that you identify. Work very closely with the product manager, and probably at the end of it, you can claim that as something that you've delivered. So it's always better, because you're trying to look for a role within the organization. So it's always better to put a project, put an example up in front, and then go up to the negotiations. It's always good to have some results and then claim for what should be good for you. All right, I'll still go back. Will a Scrum Master training help being a better product manager? This is an opinion, Suchindra. Sudhindra. So to me, yes, it did. I did a CSPO training long back, I think in 2016. It does help you be a better executioner, but will it help you to be a better product manager? Not sure. But it will definitely help you be a better executioner if you follow things a bit more in a bit more organized way. Correlation: when you build software products for customer, knowing how software built helps. I'm sorry, Bhairav, I do not understand the question. Maybe we can chat later. There is one question, Gaurav. Is there any correlation of CSIT engineer and PM role? I don't think so. Just they are in majority. So looks like, yeah, absolutely. As part of Xiaomi, I was working based out of Beijing, and then two of my product managers, none of them was an engineer. One of them studied journalism, and they were technical product managers, and the others studied economics. So I'm a computer engineering graduate. I did an MBA. And if I were a choice to study something that will help me be a better product manager, probably I'll study psychology. So I'll go next. Okay. PM Daisy, yep. Any measurement techniques available online? You could just do a Google on PM Daisy. There's I think it's a pmdaisy.com sort of a website, and try and just fill the form. It'll give you a good, a very small form to fill, and then it'll send you back how your PM Daisy looks like. So maybe that will help. Can we have the link? Okay. What skills can a program manager take and leave when they want to move to the product management? I think program managers are excellent execution people. So at the end of the day, to everyone in the company, what matters is how do you get things done. So I mean, you can have great ideas, you can have brilliant complex problem to be solved, and a really great team of engineers having good coding skills and everything. But if you don't have someone who can really chase the execution, nothing is worth it. So a great program manager can execute things. And if they want to move to product management, the only two things that they would need to understand is, one, product manager doesn't just need to push people. She needs to work very closely with influence. So you don't have direct reporting relationships with the team that is trying to develop something for you, right? So as a program manager, you have the liberty to chase them, ask them, question them, push them, and get things done. As a product manager, you don't. You have to influence them, build a level of trust that they have with you, and therefore they would build things for you. So that is the kind of skills, if a program manager has, they'll be an excellent product manager. So I believe program managers, good program managers with excellent people skills are great product managers. What ideas would you give to convert from engineering mindset over to product mindset? Think customer first. So when you're writing when you write a beautiful code, I started as a developer. So when you write a beautiful code, if you have a habit of putting comments right above the code, so that the next person who looks at the code can understand the code well, then you have the product manager mindset. So you're thinking of future, you're thinking of the customer of anything that you're creating. So the code you're creating, the next customer of that code is somebody else, probably your engineering manager or some new developers that come in the future, or the QAs. So yes, think customer, and I think that should be the only advice. I'll take a pause. Piyush,
Yes.
I should pass it on to Sonupam before I continue, right?
Yes,
and we can take the questions at the end.
Okay. Thanks a lot, David.
Pleasure.
So, hi, Sonupam. I hope you are with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Thanks a lot. So welcome, Sonupam, and thanks a lot for taking out time for today's session. So guys, I'll give you a short introduction about Sonupam before we begin. She has led products for American Express for the past 8 years and is now building products for Walmart Labs. In today's session, we are going to discuss how to build confidence to 8 PM interviews in FANG companies with her. So over to you, Sonupam.
Yeah, thanks, Piyush. And really insightful session so far from all the other speakers, right? Pamit, Tanya, and Vaibhav. And also huge shout out to all the participants, right? On a Friday, if you guys are here attending this session and trying to learn more about product management, I feel like that's kudos to everyone who's here with us today, right? The topic for today actually talks about, how we can build confidence to ace PM interviews at FANG companies, right? So while the title suggests FANG companies, I truly believe like the framework or the things that we will speak about in the next few minutes could really be applied to any organization which is more global in nature, large scale, right? Where, PMs may want to work, right? Solely due to our inclination towards the product, the people, as well as the processes which are employed in these organizations, right? So let's try and see how is it that we can really build confidence, before and while you're appearing for the interview process in some of these large scale organizations. I feel for me, while I've written that it's a 4-step process, it really boils down to 2 key aspects, right? The first one being, why do we not feel confident is because we really have the fear of the unknown, right? We don't quite know what is it that the interview or the hiring process will look like in each of the rounds. What is it that the interviewer or the organization may be testing me on, right? So the first step, that I would recommend to everyone is to genuinely be proactive in trying to research and understand the overall hiring process of each of these companies, right? Now, while at heart, typically each organization is trying to judge you essentially on your PM skills, cultural fit, your problem solving approach, etc., right? Some of these things we actually covered in one of the previous sessions which took place about a few weeks ago. But still, right, few companies do have a standard way of doing it, and having the knowledge of that pre-hand will really help you build more confidence because you know what is going to happen, right? Or you at least know in what shape or form some of the rounds may get conducted. The second thing I would say is that, once you have had like some insights into the hiring process of one of these organizations or the organization that you're targeting, you really then have to sit down and prepare, right? So like Vaibhav said, right? So sit down with your CV, try to see what are your key skill sets, what are the key stories or key projects, that you have worked on, which you would like to highlight, right? And also what are the various achievements to which you would literally want to drive your interviewer to, right, to make a better or a stronger case for yourself to eventually get selected. The third and the fourth point essentially say that, once you have done step 1 and 2 with fair amount of research and rigor, I would say practice a lot, right? Like practice all of your answers, go through a lot of mock interviews, right? Sit down and rehearse it with your peers, with your mentors, with your colleagues, right? And after each interview, really sit down and think what was being asked and do a self-assessment to say why you did a good job versus where is it that you still need a little bit more nudging and preparation to put you at a good spot, either in the future rounds of the same organization or even with other rounds of other organizations, right? So I would say that this is the entire framework. In the next few slides, I would say we could go into certain smaller subtasks of each of these tasks and also maybe give you a few examples which I or some of my close friends may have gone through in the interview processes of FANG or even related companies like Microsoft, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. Right? So, like I said, right, in the first task of your 4-step process, you have to be really proactive in trying to make sure that you have researched around the interview rounds and the specific skill sets that this organization is going to evaluate you on, right? For example, I think most of us already know that Amazon typically tests you on its 14 principles of leadership, right? So they may conduct 4 rounds to 6 rounds, right? But the essential goal of each of the rounds would be to really test you on one or more of the leadership principles, right? So I've taken actually a snapshot of the leadership principles. So if you were to know this pre-hand, you would be better, in a better situation to appear for these interviews, right? I would go into next steps to say that, once you know this, what do you then do, right? Which is our second step of prepare, right? The second thing that I would call out is, leverage your existing connects, right? So let's say your college seniors or your, neighbors or your colleagues, right? They may have appeared for these interview rounds or they may already be part of Amazon as an organization, right? So they would know a little bit better about the hiring process and what really are the skills that the organization is looking for, right? So make sure that you connect with them and you try and gather as much information as you can, right? I would also say reach out. So it could so happen that maybe, let's say I'm targeting LinkedIn, and in my immediate circle, I don't know anyone who's working for LinkedIn or who may have appeared for an interview process with LinkedIn, right? What I can then do is probably use LinkedIn as a platform, or any other, professional website as a platform, to maybe reach out to people who are working in the organization and see if some of them will be willing to mentor you, to guide you, to briefly connect with you either on a chat or a call, to share either their interview experiences or broadly, what is the framework when it comes to the hiring process, right? So now, obviously, here you may not have like 100% hit rate, but in my experience, if I do reach out to 10 people, I have seen at least one of them will respond, and happily so. And that has at least worked for me. And I believe that, if you guys also go around doing that, it could work in some instances. And that knowledge is what you could leverage to prepare better, right? Another thing is, for some of these companies, the application process, right? So getting to apply or getting, to get interviewed for the very first round can be quite a challenge, right? And in which case I've seen that referrals tend to work a little bit better than other modes of applying to these companies, right? So again, if you have a connect, it would be great if you could, request them for a referral. And I would say here, don't feel shy, right? Because if in the end you do convert it, then even the employee will get a certain benefit in the form of referral bonus. And, just make sure that you provide the link or the specific job ID in which you are really keen on, so that, this person does not have to spend a lot of time in terms of referring you. So do that due diligence, but do reach out and try to see if you can get a referral, just so that, you're shortlisted for the first few rounds of the interview process. Right. The next one I would say is that if you are shortlisted and if the interviewer does call you, right, make sure to use, the time in which the interviewer or the HR is actually calling you to help you out, in understanding the role, etc. Right. Use that time to also get insights into the overall interview process, right? So typically the recruiter in the very first call will, help you understand whether it's going to be 4 rounds or 6 rounds, and what are really the expectations from each of the rounds, right? So some rounds may be more tuned towards checking your technical knowledge, some rounds may be more tuned towards checking your, product craft, and some rounds could just be like cultural fit, right? So make sure that in the very first call, you do spend some time with the recruiter just to get a high level sense of the process and the expectations from each of the rounds, right? Another thing that I would say is that, a lot of folks do actually share their interview experiences on social media, right? So whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, or even, Glassdoor and other platforms. So it would be wise for you to actually take a look at some of these posts and content, so that, you can see what are the set of questions or the set of rounds that someone else actually went through while interviewing for these companies, right? So make sure that you do that due diligence at your end. Lastly, I would say, read the job description, right? So while it seems like some job descriptions may actually be very repetitive and iterative, in my experience, a lot of job descriptions are very well written, right? They exactly talk about the scope of the role as well as the expectations from the candidate, right? So make sure that you go through it really well and make sure that, you make sure that you're able to articulate some of the traits or the skill set that the JD is outlined for that particular role, right? So definitely go through it. Right now, this entire part that we covered was to make sure that you have a fair enough understanding on what the interview or the hiring process for an organization will look like, right? But now that I know all of this, right, now that I know that Amazon is going to test me on 14 principles, what do I do next about it, right? So I know that for Amazon, literally some of my friends, what they do is, they prepare like an Excel. So they will list out all the 14 principles in one of the columns, right? And for each of the principles, they will list out various ways in which the interviewer may be trying to test out on those traits, right? So for example, if I go back to the previous slide, the very first principle here was customer obsession, right? And a lot of other companies also have like similar values, right? For example, think customer first and so on and so forth, right? So for this kind of question, or rather for this kind of skill set or leadership quality, list out all the possible, questions or scenarios that the interviewer may test you on, right? So for example, in various rounds, I've been asked to say that, okay, you build a personal loan product, but how did you validate that there's a user need or a customer need for this product in the first place? Or, once you were able to successfully ship out the MVP of the personal loan product, how did you gauge the user feedback, right? How did you understand whether the users have been able to positively use this product versus, they did not understand, intuitively the usage of this product, right? Another way of asking this question would be to say, in LinkedIn, I was asked this question once that let's say, you take user feedback and your users tell you that they would like to have an option of being able to post anonymously, right? So what do you do with this kind of feedback that is directly coming from the users, right? Do you just go ahead and simply implement it? Or do you do your due diligence to understand the pros and cons of such a solution and really the intent of the user when they're recommending such a feature, right? So basically make sure that you're able to convert, your research into sample questions, and also write down, exhaustive. When I say write down exhaustive answers, I mean that for each of those traits or qualities, really look through your experience to say, what is that one story or what is that one experience that really truly captures that leadership trait which you would like to highlight in the interview process, right? I would also say go through the organizational values, right? So make sure that your answers are in coherence with the values that the organization really stands for, right? In no shape or form should you, in your answers or in the articulation of your answers, really invalidate some of the values on which the organization broadly works, right? So again, go to their website and take a look at their values, etc. And the last thing that I would say is that when you're trying to prepare for the interview or prepare your answers for various, questions that you have identified, definitely make sure to use the STAR approach, right? Don't just start by saying that, okay, I had to build a product and, this is how I went ahead, building the product, right? Make sure that you articulate the situation and the task before the action and the response that you get, right? So make sure that you articulate what were the certain circumstances or the leadership guidance or, what was the reason why in the first place you started to think about, launching a new product or launching a new feature, right? So make sure that you clearly articulate, why you did something and then go ahead to say how you did it and what was the results, right? So definitely at the back end, leverage the STAR approach in articulating your experiences to some of these questions. The third thing that I would say, so pay a lot of attention to step one and step two, but the third aspect is equally important, right? Which is essentially practice, practice, and do some more practice, right? So while you may think that, you have come up with really good answers and really good situations and scenarios, just make sure that you do a lot of mock interviews, right? So if you have a colleague or a friend or a mentor with whom you can actually bounce off some of these, answers that you've prepared for certain constructive feedback, right? Make sure that the story that you're trying to say actually lands itself in the way you want it to land, right? So definitely check for validation with someone, who could help you out on this front. And even if there's no one available, right? So it could be the case that, I'm trying to venture into this new field and I really don't have initial contacts. What I would recommend for you is to actually record your answers to some of these questions, right? That is what, I did for some of my initial interviews. I would record my answers and, hear it back to say whether whatever I was trying to say landed itself. And also, was it crisp and concise enough, right? You want to make sure that you're able to land your story or your experience, in a concise fashion. I would also say, sometimes let's say my background is into the lending landscape and I'm appearing for a social media platform interview, right? Now, this person who is my interview in this case, I need to make sure that they really understand the concepts or the frameworks that I'm going to say, which actually belong to the lending landscape, right? So this person may not know enough about this space, given he or she may be working on other spaces for a reasonable length of time. So make sure that you are able to articulate your stories in a way that any layman belonging to any domain knowledge can actually follow and understand. Don't just start, saying a lot of the keywords or terminologies or metrics, which only someone who has spent reasonable amount of time in an industry could understand, right? So make sure that it is simplistic enough for people from other industries to also be able to understand, right? And that is why I feel rehearsing and bouncing it off with people from other domains really helps, because they can give you a genuine feedback to say that, listen, you told me these 10 sentences, but I lost you after the second line just because you made it too technical or too specific to your own domain. Right? So make sure that you test out on your storytelling skills, and basis the feedback, you continuously improvise your answers. Right? The last thing that I would say is, just learn from your various interview experiences, right? You may have given 2 interviews or 20 interviews or 200 interviews. After every interview, if you do a self-assessment, I'm sure that there's a learning, right? There's a learning where you could have done better, or even in terms of, where you're interacting with the interviewer may have, hinted you towards a certain direction, which you didn't initially think of, right? So make sure that you maintain a list of all the interviews that you're appearing for, right? What are the kind of questions that are getting asked? And also, what were the learnings from each of these experiences, right? They can be really small, but they can also be like plenty in number, right? So make sure that you have like a record of it, which you can, refer back to and, improve in your next rounds of discussions. The last thing that I would like to call out is that, whether you make it into the interview round or you don't make it, make sure to ask the recruiter for feedback, right? It is very important for you to know where is it that you're doing a good job versus where is it, that the hiring manager or the recruiters are not being able to see a fit, right? And basically that feedback will really help you to improvise and do a better job, in your future rounds of interviews. And sometimes asking for feedback from the interviewer, or rather the recruiter, also really helps you to say that, okay, I wasn't probably good enough for this role because of, let's say, me not having enough domain knowledge, but if you do have, future openings in this company in XYZ roles, I would be happy if you could consider my profile, right? So make sure that you have that kind of a true and full communication with your recruiter, so that, you have very good nuanced feedback. And also you're able to understand, or rather, make sure that you have that relationship with the recruiter, that they would be willing to consider you for certain other roles or openings that may come up in the future, right? So yeah, I think these were some of my thoughts around, how we can go about building more confidence, when we're trying to appear for some of these interviews. And how basically researching and practicing could really help us build more confidence and really ace some of these interviews. With that, yeah, I will take a pause here to see if there are any questions. And, I would also like to reiterate, with the thing that Piyush started in the beginning of the session, which is around how Pragmatic Leaders also offers PM courses, which could really help you through the theoretical knowledge, through a lot of assignments and through a lot of mentorship, really help you prepare well for the interviews and just learn about product management in great depth. The June cohort is going to start, I believe, in the next week, and the registrations for those close on 2nd June. So if you do want to know more about the program, etc., please do reach out to Piyush or to the team or to myself for any queries around the program as well. So I'll take a pause here to see if there were any questions around the original topic that we covered here.
Thanks for the session, Sonupam. It was really amazing. We have a lot of questions right now. So we can start picking up some of them.
Okay, let me start from the bottom, right?
Sure. And I would also like to invite other speakers, Tanya, Weber, and Pamit, if you are with us. So.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
So we can start picking up some questions. So I think we have certain questions asked for Sonupam specifically, so we can pick certain questions from there and then jump on to other set of questions.
Got it. So Piyush, would you be reading those out, or should I just, go ahead, from back to front?
I can read some of them.
Okay,
so,
great.
Let me know where I should start. I'm just checking from where I should start. There are a lot of questions.
Yeah, really interactive audience, I must say.
Okay, so I'll start with this question from Rohit. How to keep yourself on learning curve in product management role as product managers, more relevant for new products till they become stable?
So what I typically like to do are 2 things, right? So one is, if you're fortunate enough to be in product management already, or if there's a way that you can shadow the role of a PM in your current organization, right? I think, on-job skill sets really help. The other thing that you can do more offline is so there's lots of content on LinkedIn. There are several blogs as well as books available, right? So I feel like even in today's session, some books and some YouTube channels or some content creators were also highlighted, like Shreyas, etc. So it's a good thing to actually start following them, and maybe, spending, I would say, anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour on a daily basis, or, on like a weekly basis. And that really then, over a certain period of time, you will realize that, you have been able to develop or build, a PM mindset. That is what I would suggest. Anyone else who would like to share their thoughts on this one?
Okay, I think we can move to next one. Next one is from Jim. I am not very confident of business analysis math skill set. I am trying to improve them constantly, but I think the farthest I can reach is intermediate Excel and SQL. I am however confident about my soft skills, customer empathy, and any other relevant skill sets for product management. How do I go about exposing my strengths over my weakness during PM interview?
Yeah, I would say, so typically in your interviews, the hiring manager or the interviewer actually, want to hear from you around your resume, right? Or hear from you around your work experience, right? And if that happens, which typically does, right, make sure to leverage that, right? Make sure that you only talk about stories or skill sets or instances, which is where you want to spend more time with your interviewer, right? So it's very important to nudge the interviewer in the direction in which you would want them to, right? So for example, I was involved in launching of a new product, and I feel like speaking about it is when I'm the most passionate, and also from where I got most of my learnings, right? So I make sure to speak about it right in the beginning of my resume, or when I'm being asked about my work experience, right? So that's one trait that you can use. Having said that, even if that does not happen, right, even if you're not nudged towards giving a beginning of your work experience, or let's say the interviewer still takes it to a different direction where he or she may be interested in, uh, definitely speak about what the interview is really asking, but communication skills or softer skills is something that you would require irrespective of the project, right? So you can definitely leverage the articulation of how your soft skills or how your influencing mechanisms or negotiation skills really helped you get that product live, or really contributed towards the success of the initiative that you were working on.
That was helpful, I think. So guys, you can also switch on your cameras. You can speak up your questions. I think that will be more interactive. Meanwhile, I'll pick up next question. This question, okay. There is one question for Vaibhav from Aina Kapoor. So her question is, I am currently working as sales manager with B2B chatbot company and looking forward to make a switch into PM role in customer product companies. How can I leverage my skills I gained here for making switch to product management role?
Yeah, I think anybody can answer that. But it's a privilege that you get to directly interact with customers, whether it's a B2C product or it's a B2B product. And I can say that at least for the products that I have worked on, directly, indirectly, most of the products evolve based on early customer feedback. So your B2B businesses that you interact with, a lot of requirements that they share with you as a sales manager are the ones that typically go back and become features in the product. So essentially, I would see this as, and you're the best person to judge to what extent that is actually happening. You as a sales manager are working as someone who consistently takes customer feedback. You are a person who's directly understanding what features translate to revenue and what features don't. So your customers tell you, I mean, there may be like, say, 50p features in your chatbot, but you would be the one who would know which are the most useful features for the customers, which every product manager needs to know about that product. So you know that. Second, there is a constant interaction and a constant communication channel that is open between you and your customers, and that literally translates to a requirement, to the best requirement gathering platform. So three skills: one, requirement collection analysis; second, understanding customer needs and translating that into business value; and third, communicating all that you collect with the customers to relevant stakeholders. It could be engineering teams, it could be someone else, or maybe, you know, if it's a big company, probably it goes through a chain. If it's a small company, you directly talk to the engineering team. So these three skills translate to product management. I would say a very good role for such a person would be to get into directly making changes that reduce customer drop off. So something that's sort of a product role. A product marketing manager, I see, would be a really amazing role if you can get your hands onto within the company that you're working. But yeah, but I think, you know, you are touching at least the three aspects of the PM Daisy that I just shared from someone, and maybe doing that will help you.
I think I would also like to add something. I think that was great, Weber. And whoever asked this question, a very interesting story. My first boss in ICICI had come from a sales background. She was the lead product manager, and I was her subordinate. So you can see that, you know, people really make it huge even from those kind of backgrounds, and especially when you transition within the company into different roles. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. The second case study that I shared was of a lady who ended up leading payment integrations for Uber globally, and she was in a sales role at ICICI. So I mean, there are plenty such examples. I mean, you just need to have that confidence and get a grip on your skills and apply for the right positions wherever it opens.
एक चीज ऐड करना चाह रहा था. HR recruitment and talent acquisition side पे ना, at least India में, there is a lot of resistance now of non-product people getting into product. Now it's a very sad way of going about selecting product managers, but it's also because that works well at scale. Probability wise, it's a much better percentage bet to get an APM who's probably worked in a product, or an analyst, someone who's worked in the product, and take that person inside. And so there is a practical aspect to this, which is that TAs, talent acquisition guys, they tend to not, there is a bit of a resistance. One thing that Webber said is very good, which is that you should try and do it within the company. Your usually best bet is within the company, because you've already got context within the company. 2-3 साल sales wheels किया है, systems पता है. If you can get kind of do a lateral shift within the company, and then you pakro that patri of product management, you can apply abroad. Otherwise, it's hard. It's going to get harder and harder. I don't know about some of these foreign products and your Gamma, Fang, and all these kind of companies, but I think it is hard. I mean, I don't. Let me put it this way: whether it's at Ola or any of my previous systems, I don't put myself through that labor. So, ढूंढना मुश्किल है. So keep that in mind.
And then maybe one more thing to add to that. So I completely agree. It's difficult to crack, without a PM tag and PM and non-technical background, let's say, sales and different lines. But another thing can work in your favor if you try and use your domain expertise as a reason to get into product. So let's say if you've been working, let's say on wealth platforms, say in ICICI, again, wo example start ho gaya to. And then you get into one of the companies or a fintech that is trying to build a wealth management platform or something like that. Then it is easier for you to get into product management role. But yes, in general, let's say, it is not easy. But yeah, there will not be plenty, but there will be examples. Yeah. There'll ज़्यादा effort लगेगा, more than usual. But it's possible.
वो हमारे जमाने में हो गया, जिसका होना था ना, वो सेल्स हेड बन गया, प्रोडक्ट हेड वगैरह, all that used to happen. I mean, sorry, I know you guys are younger to me, but at least in my time, I also started off non-product only, but it was easier at that time because these roles were not as structured. So try and do a lateral shift, I would suggest. One last tip. Sorry, I know I'm pushing this a little further. One good way of trying to get product chops is to actually build UI. Although you or wireframe. So you actually, when you're internally, so catch hold of a product manager internally, make friends, take him out for lunch, and say, boss, मैंने कुछ UI बनाया है, review करो उसको, and मैं sizing भी करके दूंगा. So if you make it easier for one of the product guys internally, ये मैं थोड़ा politics सिखा रहा हूँ. So then you might have a chance, So you're making the product manager's job, easier. And there was a kid who did this very interestingly, and he in my from previous organization. So there are ways of doing it. You'll have to manage it that way. Percentage chances of getting into or you go into a startup. That's a completely different thing. I think. So, anyways, I'll stop laboring the point.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Thank you so much for such an elaborate answer to my questions. That is very helpful. I'll pick up some of the points and we'll work on it. Thank you so much.
We have 3 hands raised. I think Nikhil raised hand first. So Nikhil, would you like to go ahead and ask the question?
Yeah, Piyush. Yeah. So my question is basically to Sonupam that as you moved from financial space to retail, Walmart Labs. So I wanted to know how difficult it is to move as a PM from one industry, so one space to other, and what are the different things you have to learn, unlearn, and do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say at the heart of a PM, your PM skills pretty much remain the same irrespective of the domain in which you're going to go into, right? So from that aspect, like the interview process, etc., no matter for which company I've tried, they've tried to test out on the same, basic PM craft. Having said that, it's important to really know, what kind of a domain would you want to go into and why, right? Would it really excite you even once you make it? And also have some understanding of the trends in that space, right? So definitely read up to understand what are the trends, because sometimes a lot of the questions can be tuned towards, recent problems or recent use cases that the organization is trying to solve for. So I think pivoting on that and being a little bit prepared before you actually go into the interview process is really going to help out. But other than that, I feel like as long as your PM skills are solid, strong, you can basically use that in any domain, so to say.
Okay. Thanks, Anupam. Yeah, Piyush. So I have one more question if time permits, and if you allow, I can ask that for whoever.
Okay, sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is I had just completed my MBA last year, and I am working in analytics since then. So I'm a beginner in analytics field also. And before MBA, I worked in electricity distribution for around 4 years. So I'm new in analytics space. I don't know much of how to get insights, don't know much in analytics space, and I want to shift to PM. So how should I go about that in such case? Because I'm not an expert in this space yet also.
Is that a question to me?
Yeah. Because
So maybe
anyone,
I can start,
anyone.
I think anybody, and I think others can chip in because everybody can contribute on this. So my bit on this one, Nikhil, is the best way to learn any skill for that matter is to do it right. Now, same goes with product management, and it's a lot of science and as much as it is art, right? So product management, I mean, you will have product managers who started and then they are completely different, giants. Like Shreyas is giant when it comes to product management today. So you will have to give it time. So how do you start early? That's the question. And where do you want to start? So do you need a job? Let's say, do you need a job as a product manager to start learning product management? Probably not. What I would do in your space, and this is again my opinion, what I would do is I would maybe join hands with people trying to maybe create a startup or trying to do a project in the space that you're familiar with. So you're familiar with electricity distribution. There are probably, and again, not my area of expertise, but there are probably problems that you're more aware of in that area. And if you look enough, you will globally, I'm not talking of India, you globally will be able to find a few people who are trying to solve a problem in that area. More so, you could go into product hunt and then put a post or a query to see people who are trying to solve a problem in electricity distribution, say somewhere in the world. Once you join hands with, let's say, on such projects, and you try to get introduced to different aspects of the same problem. So of course, when we work in a particular domain, the challenge comes is we get good on the domain, but we only focus on one single aspect. So either we are focusing too much on revenue, paisa kitna aa raha hai, or we are trying to focus on too much on the quality of solution. But let's say if you try to solve or try to know all the aspects of the same problem from a different angle, you're getting developed as a product manager. And importantly, you get to work with a team. You get to work with people, because see, product manager cannot be learned sitting in a room. I mean, of course, there are great books, but you only go as far till you work with a team, till you work with literally created stakeholders. You would not know actual things. So I would suggest find a project in your area of expertise so that you can visibly contribute and try and solve something together. And you can do this pro bono, you can do this voluntary or something, and then eventually this can go into your CV, and probably somebody sees value.
That helps. Yeah. Thank you, Vaibhav. Thanks a lot.
Next, I think Jesus, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I have an experience as a team lead with IT services, and this was before I pursued my master's in engineering management. So I've completed my master's in engineering management, and I think it was innovations management, which was a subject which attracted me towards this product management role. So I am really interested in this, and that's the reason why I want to see how I can carry my experience being a team lead. How I can portray myself as someone who can bring value to a role like product management, or how I can, tailor my CV accordingly to have, basically put myself forward as an ideal candidate for product manager.
Okay. So Pamit, would you like to take this one?
Well, which company are you with?
I was working with DXC Technologies.
DXC. And what kind of a technical role? You're a front-end developer, or what are you exactly?
There was no development as such. It was more to do with IT services as service support and stuff.
So you've been on the service side and you want to move to product. That's one way of thinking about it. Is that fair? When you're doing services, what kind of services are you working?
Application support.
Support.
It was offshore support with the client.
Got it. Moving into product, from there, there's one straight route that you can pick, which is, see, the fact that you've been in a technology environment works in your advantage, because you've you know how tech works, right? You know, at least you know the basics of, what kind of framework you're operating in as far as tech is concerned. Moving from services to product, you said you've done a master's in engineering.
That's right, engineering management.
What does that entail? Have you done solution design and all? Have you done system design?
I mean,
to be able to do build a tech stack for, let's say, an OTT platform?
No, I mean, it was one of the electives, but I didn't really go for systems part of it. I went primarily towards like supply chain or ERPs, innovation management, TQM, and
more on the B2B side of product management seems to be a better fit. If there's anyone here who's done B2B product management, I think I'm more of a consumer product guy. But you might be able to get yourself into a B2B product management role. But I would definitely recommend first doing product management as a theoretical course to begin with on whatever platform you choose. It's a little, I mean, service and support tech on the tech side is a little away from product right now. There's very little reason for me to recruit you. So I'm being very, direct about it. But it's better that you first at least do a product management course. All right. One convenient way could be to get into the startup ecosystem. So you work with a startup because your tech background will help there. But I'm sure there might be better answers. Whether we've got something, Sonupam, maybe on the B2B side, I'm thinking, but please feel free to better me on this.
So maybe something I can add. So I worked with a company where we were building a B2C product, and then it was a very small startup, but laden with really capable people who came out of big companies, consulting firms, and created this in Gurgaon. And then at some point in time, we together as a group, and also I was the product manager for one of the products, and we decided that we will do a very massive pivot. We will completely shift from a customer focus to a business focus. So we'll not be a B2C company, but rather will become a B2B company. And at that point in time, on two such occasions, we hired. Actually, one such occasions, we hired someone who was absolutely new to product management. So this girl was a QA at I think SNP. So she was a QA and had no prior product experience, and we were just taking a bet. But we hired her as an APM, and I remember we never regretted that decision. And later on, and today she's working in robotics industry as a really good product senior product manager. So my opinion and experience comes from the fact that you have to identify just what are things that will work in your favor. I agree with Pamit. Things like being familiar with directly working with engineers, to an extent managing them, will work in your favor. But it will also work against you, because as a product manager, they will never report to you, right? And probably your relationship will not be instructional, it will be influential. So what I would suggest, maybe try to take an assignment or do some sort of product management within your existing teams. Now DXC is a service company, but you can always, like the project that you're working on, you can always work closely with the people that probably are called technical program managers, and end-to-end get involved in the process of collecting requirement from the clients, in your case the IT service clients, and deliver that end-to-end, be involved in the entire process. There will be communications that'll go out once the release happens and stuff like that. So at least you get a first-hand experience of what it would be like to manage an end-to-end product. And lastly, I agree. If you try to probably use your technical background in some of the startups, then there's a really good chance that they would hire you. But of course, it'll not be easy to break into a senior role, but probably you'll have to start as a junior. But I think you can really move fast if you prove yourself. So maybe that's what I think. Again, open to others to share their ideas.
One quick thing here, I was thinking it's a tough one because you're working service tech support. There's one way that you can transition, which is slightly longer route, apart from the startup route, which Weber when we spoke about, which is that you get into front end or back end development. You move from tech to tech, and then you move into product. There are a lot of techies who get into product, especially in product companies. I'm not necessarily talking about B2B companies. I'm talking largely about product companies, where so you move from your current role to either you can do a couple of courses on Python development and all. Tech also pays well. Huh? Why do you want to leave tech, man? Tech pays more than product, by the way. Madam didn't cover that, Tanya.
Yes, it does. If you're really good, yes.
Yeah, tech and all, and you also can get into the AI/ML side of things. So don't
exactly.
completely abandon tech. Huh? It is something that after my engineering, I am now repenting. I should have just stayed on. Where were laughing? I'm sure you agree, right? I mean, at some stage, these guys are going to start. I mean, the MLP, a lot of the automation is going to take over, right? The decision science is going to take over fraud detection, misuse, all kinds of use cases. In Ola, we are doing, automation in terms of driving also now, computer vision.
Even network security, I've seen a lot of good packages being offered there.
Yeah. So, I mean, my long and short of the answer is you don't have to directly jump to product. You can try and get into either back-end or front-end technologies, away from service, more into technologies which are on the product side of things. Is that helpful, or do you think that's a no-go for you?
That's definitely something I can consider.
Yeah. Tech pays very well, by the way. The techies in my office are at least paid 1.5 times me.
I think that's global, right? That's global. And then all people who are from an engineering background or who started as an engineer, let's say, they at some point in time, once they start understanding business really well, and they have so many ideas, they really miss being able to create something for themselves. So I know what Pamit is saying. I share that feeling.
Sure. I think we can move to next question now. Gaurav,
Yeah, guys, I have two small questions. The first is that there is anything known as a freelancing product management exist? And the second question is that do the remote location product manager roles are now evolving?
Okay, I'll answer very quickly and then the rest can give. TopTal pe jaake register kar lo. You know, that is very much freelancing product management. I've done that, and you get some very lucrative consulting assignments, product consulting. We are competing with the American product managers who are way ahead of us. Frankly, I mean, the Americans have figured out product management very well. So yeah, TopTal is one platform which comes to mind. I'm sure there'll be more. And what was the other question, dude?
The second question is that is the remote product management job roles remote profiles?
Work from home to chal raha hai till the time the pandemic is on. It's going to be work from home. I think the remote product management role, at least the hybrid remote kind of work mode is going to, at least in India, it will be there. I guess 3 days a week and all. Completely remote. Some very ballsy companies might do it, like your Googles and all of the world. The super cool tech companies will do it. I think apna jo mid tech kind of companies hai, they'll need you to come to office. I am of the school of thought that remote tech should work, but I think CEOs in India are not ready for it yet. I mean, from whatever I gather.
Yes. And one compliment to you, I like that your usage and revenue retention comment you started your presentation. I belongs to UNR background from telco. I really find strength in that.
Good. Usage and revenue is product management. We should talk about it offline, but UNR is essentially product management. Because even if you ask Vaibhav, Sonupam and Tanya, they will tell you they're basically doing usage and revenue. It's the same thing.
Correct. I wish somebody interview me in future who understand this.
So we can quickly move to next question. We are short on time, so we can take 2-3 more questions and then we'll wind up. Meet, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Piyush. Very insightful session so far. So currently I'm doing a PGP in it's like a mixture of everything. I don't think you guys have heard, but it's from Plaksha University, and it's founded by 60 founders and all that. So I actually wanted to transition to PM role, but the thing is, previously I've worked like 2.5 years experience in analytics consulting, mostly doing web analytics and app analytics, and I've applied to majority of the PM roles, and my shortlist have mostly been for the product analyst roles. So I was asked, I mean, my question was in the terms that how easy is it to transition from being a senior product analyst to like being a PM, or should I continue to target APM roles and then move to PM that way? Like what would be more organic for people who are already into analytics space to like transition to PM?
See, from my experience, I think I have personally seen a lot of analytics guys move into product management. But at the same time, I know Pamit will, scorn at me. It's internal. Okay, it's easier when it's internal and when it's early, not after 5-7 years. But initially, it's much easier. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, guys.
Piyush, you're speaking on mute.
Sorry. Next, Ankit.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, hello. So actually, currently, I'm working as a product manager in banking industry, and I want to make a switch to a tech-based or internet startup kind of ecosystem. But the thing is, currently as a PM role in bank, I'm in the center of the risk, credit, operations, sales team. Whereas in the internet sector, it is more of analytics, then UI, and then comes the business team. And also I don't have a technical background, not from my engineering background. So how can I make that shift? Like what things I should keep, or things or skills I should brush up? So that all I wanted to know.
So, Ankit, have you been appearing for any such interviews, and do you think that you have any understanding of where you may not be doing a good job? The reason I ask is that in my company, a lot of people in business analysts or into working in this domain, etc. Again, to the point, if it's early on or within the same company, were able to transition into the kind of roles that you are speaking about, right? And you also made a comment around tech. I think it's a broader understanding that you really don't have to code or anything, but you need to be able to understand and speak the language of developers, because at the end of the day, one key goal that you will have is to actually implement features. And for that, you need to be able to broadly communicate and understand the language that the tech team does, right? But you don't really literally have to know in and out, right? Like, especially in the US, a lot of our counterparts, they don't have a BTech degree. Of course, in India, a lot of them do. But in the US, they don't, right? So I don't think having a BTech degree or a technology degree is mandatory. Having said that, it would be insightful to see if you're already in the hiring process, and if you already felt a few places where you personally felt that you couldn't do justice to some of the questions. I think that would be a good place to start by thinking, where is it that you should work on more, right? A lot of interviews do actually focus on your problem solving approach, and like focusing on problem identification rather than jumping on solution, and a lot of structured and analytical questions, right? So that's one place where I would suggest you spend a lot of time. Other than that, yeah, I think happy if anyone else wants to add on, if you want to share your experience, to say that, okay, this is one or two areas that I'm struggling in, and that should be a good starting point for you to, improvise on.
Yeah, I would like to add something. I was in banking, right? And I had colleagues who had been in ICICI with me for more than 4 years, being in the middle of, the underwriting risk, legal, all those stakeholder management, not really from any tech backgrounds, transitioning as a product manager into Amazon. And there are several such examples. So it's all about, like Sonapam is saying, leveraging what you learn over the time. Even if you're in a bank, right, you can get into projects which are more B2C based. You can get into website building or join teams which are, let's say, in iMobile, right? I was in a relationship sort of a role in a treasury department. I transitioned myself into an iMobile department, right, where I could develop features on the app. I was directly working with PMs and senior PMs in that particular department. So even if you're in a bank, don't feel stuck. Try to get into product based sort of projects, and that's what you can leverage in your next interviews. So I think that can really help you.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. I think that was helpful. So we have a lot of questions coming in, but I think we are really short on time. So guys, we need to wind up the session for now. You can use our Slack community. I have added link of a Slack community in the chat section. So you can put up your questions there, and we'll try to answer all of those questions as and when our speakers and mentors get time. So that note, I think I'll wind up the session over here. Thanks a lot once again, Pamit, Tanya, Vaibhav, and Sonupam, for taking out time and conducting such an insightful masterclass for pragmatic leaders. And thanks a lot, everyone, for staying with us for 2.5 hours on Friday night. So I'm sure everyone would have got a lot of takeaways from this session. And this is not all. So we are very soon launching our new platform. It's called True Merit. It's a completely new model where you will be getting, we will be interacting with a lot of speakers and a lot of mentors along with this. So we are going to conduct a lot of hands-on practical classes and a lot of mock interview sessions and a lot of preparatory sessions over there. So just stay connected, and I'll keep all of you updated as soon as it goes live. Apart from this, as Sonupam told, our upcoming cohort is launching on 5th of June. So if you want to enroll in the program, or if you have any other queries related to the program, so you can reach out to me, reach out to our team. And that's all from our end. Thanks a lot, everyone, once again.
Thanks, Piyush. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.